Hello and welcome everyone. This is an clinical extension of what we just discussed in the clinical hematology series about the CBC interpretation report and how we have seen different types of, you know, the variation in the WBC count and how to delineate what would be the cause. So today I'm just telling you about fever, the most frequently asked questions related to fever, especially the questions which come in the mind of a physician when a patient comes to the OPD with this complaint. Because fever is the chiefest complaint of all the patients, whether be OPD as well as the IPD, as well as you will find the same of our relatives or in our homes. Fever is the chiefest complaint, it's very common. So, fever is produced by a pyrogen, that is a cytokine, that is a type of interleukin 1 which produces fever. Okay, so you can see a simple example is what a simple cold and cough, that is a upper respiratory tract infection, or there is pain in the flank, there is burning sensation in the urine, that is UTI. These are all symptomatic fevers, means the fever is secondary to some cause, so that will not initiate an investigation very suddenly. Fever is also known by the name pyrexia. Pyrexia because the temperature of the blood has to be remain constant. If it increases, that's the condition is pyrexia or a febrile response of the body. Now, if we call about the investigations, pyrexia of unknown origin, we don't know what is the cause of pyrexia. We have already delineated all the causes, but still it's not clear. So we get for an investigation, that is the culture sensitivity of the blood. So it is surely going to tell you what is the cause. If you have no clue at all and if the facility is available, but it is very expensive and it is a very time taking thing. Now, fever can be due to some infection or inflammatory condition. Infection could be a viral infection or a typhoid fever or a bacterial infection, acute chronic parasitic infestations. All these could be the infectious causes, whether be a viral infection or a bacterial infection or a parasitic infestation. Now, if the physician has to order a fever panel, like the patient is coming with this the if the secondary things are not there, like if there is not a cold and cough presence or burning sensation, when you cannot cannot pinpoint the systemic involvement due to which the fever is coming, and what is actually poking the interleukin 1 production now by of the cytokines. So first you will order a CBC. Of course, in the CBC, the two things that are going to help you is TLC and DLC. Okay. Now in case of a chronic cough which is not getting relieved, or if you're suspecting a TB, you go for a sputum microscopy and culture. The same routine microscopy is available for the urine also, and culture and sensitivity for urine in case you suspect any infection in the urinary tract, and sputum when you are suspecting the inflammation in the upper respiratory tract or lower respiratory tract. Now you also order a peripheral blood smear study for the malarial parasite, then Vidal test for the typhoid and paratyphoid fever. Dengue fever, you order a NS1 antigen test. And for TB, we see the presence of acid fast bacilli in the sputum and the stain which is used in Zeal-Nansen stain. Or we also call it as a ZN staining. Now, let's come to the mechanism of the fever, how actually the fever takes place. Fever is produced in response to the endotoxins which are liberated by the infecting agents and also which are produced by the tissue destruction. So these endotoxins, what they do? They act on the monocytes, the macrophages and the Kupffer cells. They are forming a part of non-specific defense mechanism. So there is release of cytokines, interleukin 1 which is a pyrogen that will act on the anterior hypothalamus. Anterior hypothalamus, it is going to increase the production of the prostaglandin E2, which is raising the thermostat set point in the thalamus, and there is active heat production and there is reduction in the heat loss, and the fever is presented to the patient. So this is the mechanism of development of the fever. Now, one thing is very clear that whenever a patient comes to the OPD, the vital signs are examined. That could be the temperature, the pulse rate, the respiratory rate, blood pressure, and also now SpO2 is included as a part of vital signs. So these vitality of the patient is assessed with this. Any kind of abnormality will be reflected in these signs. So if the temperature is high, if there is fever, the pulse rate is going to be increased. So for every 1 degree increase, there is the heartbeat increases 10 times. Okay, and tachycardia is always there in fever, means the heart rate is more than 100 beats per minute. So you can see there is a law also that whenever the fever will be there, the temperature, the temperature of the SA node metabolism activity increases, and as a rate, heart rate also increases. Now, how you are going to actually measure this temperature? You have to use a clinical thermometer. The range of a clinical thermometer ranges from 35 to 42 degrees centigrade. In 35 to 42 degrees centigrade, and in degree Fahrenheit, this is 94 to 108 degree Fahrenheit. Now, what we call fever, actually, if the temperature becomes more than 99 degree Fahrenheit, that is more than 37.2 degrees centigrade. That is the time when it is the time for giving the antipyretics, very importantly. Mild fever is around 37.2 to 38.3. That is, if the temperature is 99 to 101 degree Fahrenheit, then also you have to prescribe the pyretics. That means at this point, that is more than 37.2, more than 99 degree Fahrenheit, in order to get the relief, you have to prescribe the antipyretic. Now, high fever is what? 40 to 41.2, that is 101 to 104 degree Fahrenheit. And hyperpyrexia, which is a life threatening condition, that is more than 41.6 or more than 107. Okay, that is your hyperpyrexia, when the also the brain involvement of the cerebral fever may take place. Then hypothermia, which is less than 35 degree or less than 95 degree Fahrenheit. That is how clinically you can classify fever depending upon the temperature. Also, depending upon the history, fever can be continuous, fever can be remittent, fever can be intermittent. Continuous if it do not fluctuate in 24 hours. Okay, more than 1 degree centigrade. Remittent when the fluctuation is exceeding 2 degrees centigrade. And intermittent when it is present for few hours, and then it is normal for rest of the day. Now, one thing to keep in mind is TB is a very low grade remittent fever. Okay, or also known as the vesperal fever, which is accompanied with night sweats and evening rise in temperature. So this is the classic clinical presentation of a TB fever. If we talk about the intermittent fever, we have again three varieties. Quotidian relapsing fever, tertian fever. Quotidian relapsing fever occurs every day. Tertian fever occurs every 48 hours, and this your every 72 degrees, every 72 um, more than 2 degrees fluctuation, there's a quartan fever, which is irregularly intermittent fever. So if every 48 hours it happens, if every 72 hours happen, there's irregular intermittency. That is a type of Quotidian fever. So continuous fever examples are typhoid, lobar, pneumonia. Remittent fever is infective endocarditis. Intermittent therapy I have written, it is intermittent fever that is seen in malaria and septicemia. Tertian fever is seen in Plasmodium vivax and oval malaria. Quotidian fever is seen in Plasmodium malaria. Now, let's see, there are certain other types of fevers also. That's the Pell-Epstein fever, that is classically seen in the Hodgkin's lymphoma, when there is cycle of several days of fever alternating with the afebrile period. So Pell-Epstein fever is particularly seen in Hodgkin's lymphoma. Now, relapsing fever, of course, it is seen, this relapsing fever is what, there is an episode of fever which is separated by days when no such febrile activity is seen. Now, biphasic fever is a saddleback fever. There are two distinct febrile phases in biphasic fever. Example is the dengue fever and the yellow fever. Then there is undulant fever. Undulant fever means there will be gradual rise and fall in temperature, and undulant fever is characteristically seen in case of brucellosis. Okay, so that was about fever, and how clinically you can apply the concept of DLC to it, that we'll see in the next video. Now, of course, one thing that you can keep in mind is, as you see, these are the different types of the fever which are seen. Like in typhoid and paratyphoid, I told you there is some other causes of the isolated type of WBC's presence or absence. Like in bacterial acute and chronic pyogenic infection, you will always get neutrophilia. In viral infections like typhoid and paratyphoid viruses, you will always get lymphopenia, right? And parasitic infestation, you will get eosinophilia. So in all these cases, the clinical picture will be different for the different type of WBCs which are seen in the DLC. So this is how we can correlate. That correlation I'll be making in the subsequent videos. Thank you so much.